Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024. The public hearing is now open. The event is being recorded and will be posted for public review. My name is Betsy Huddleston. I'm the Regional Supervisor for the Division of Air Quality in the Washington Regional Office. I have been appointed to be the hearing officer for this public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive your comments for consideration in the issuance of an air quality permit to the Duke Energy Progress Roxboro Steam Electric Plant. Duke Energy is seeking to retire the 6 coal-fired boilers at the plant and to replace them with 4 new primary natural gas-fired combined cycle turbines. In addition to these turbines, the facility will install an auxiliary boiler, 4 natural gas-fired heaters, and 2 diesel-fired emergency generators. The project is part of Duke Energy's carbon plan submitted to the North Carolina Utilities Commission to comply with the carbon dioxide emissions reductions required by Session Law 2021-165, House Bill 951. The address for the site is in Person County at 1700 Dunaway Road, Samora, North Carolina 27343. All forms of comments will be received, and we'll all have equal consideration in the final decision on whether to issue the permit. The Director of the Division of Air Quality, Mike Abrazinskis, has decided to conduct this public hearing as part of the comment period to receive your comments. The public hearing announcement was published in the Roxboro Courier-Times on October the 7th, 2024, and the Division of Air Quality's website on October 11th, 2024. During this public hearing, we will be receiving oral comments from those individuals who have registered to speak at this event. If you have not registered to speak, but you still wish to provide oral comments, please return to the registration table in the lobby to sign up. Joining me for this hearing tonight are representatives from the Division of Air Quality's Raleigh Central Office, Raleigh Regional Office, and the Washington Regional Office, and I would like to recognize them tonight. Our first person from the DAQ is Sean Taylor. He is the Division of Air Quality's Public Information Officer. He's centered out of Raleigh. We have Taylor Hartsfield. She is the Division of Air Quality's Deputy Director. We have Mark Suilla. He is the Division of Air Quality Chief of Permitting Section. We have Russell Braswell, who is here, who's the permit engineer who reviewed this application and wrote the draft permit. We have representatives from the Raleigh Regional Office, including Dawn Reddix, who is the Regional Supervisor. We have Taylor Easter, who is timekeeping for tonight's hearing. And we have other Raleigh Regional staff here, including John Davenant. We have Jimmy Lewis, Rex Gallegos, and Nathan Mullins, who may be in the back working the table. We have from the Washington Regional Office where I work, we have Robert Bright and Connolly Hooter, and they're here assisting me with taking notes during the meeting of the hearing. I would like to thank any local city, county officials who may have joined us tonight. We appreciate your interest in this application and draft permit. The comment period for this draft permit opened on October 11th, 2024, and it will close on Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 5 o'clock p.m. In addition to your oral comments tonight, the division is also accepting comments via email, and that email address, and we'll go over it again at the end of this hearing, is daq.publiccommentsatt.deq.nc.gov. Please include a subject line referring to Duke Roxboro .24a. And by phone, you may submit to a voicemail box at a phone number of 919-707-8726. Also, if you have written comments that you wish to submit, we have a box available right here next to the microphone for which you can put your written comments in that box at any time tonight. All forms of comments will be received, and all will have equal consideration in the final decision of whether to issue this permit. Copies of the permit application, the draft permit, The draft permit review and other information concerning the permit application are available to the public at the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Raleigh Regional Office that's located at 3800 Barrett Drive in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's also at the Division of Air Quality Central Office, Air Permitting Section, located at 217 West Jones Street, Suite 4000 in Raleigh, North Carolina. These materials are available during normal business hours at these locations. Please call in advance to make an appointment. A copy of the draft air permit and the draft permit review are also available on the North Carolina Division of Air Quality's website at ncair.org. That's ncair.org. It's in the section titled Public Notices when you go to this website. The order of the events for tonight are as follows. First, Russell Braswell with the Division of Air Quality Raleigh Central Office, as the permit engineer, will discuss the application and the draft air quality permit. This will be followed by the public comment period. Only those individuals who have registered to speak will be called on to present oral comments. To hear as many speakers as possible, oral statements will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. We want to provide as much time as possible for all speakers to be heard. The public hearing is scheduled to adjourn no later than 9 o'clock tonight. We will call the names of each registered speaker in order of your registration. The first speaker will be called, and we will also announce the name of the next speaker in the queue so that they can be prepared to provide their comment. Please proceed to the microphone when your name's called. Your time will start when you begin speaking. We will keep track of your time and will announce when your 3 minutes has expired. Please respect the time of all who wish to present oral comments tonight by adhering to the time limits and closing your remarks as quickly as possible once your time is up. Cross-examination of the person who is presenting comments or me, the hearing officer, will not be allowed. However, as the hearing officer, I may ask questions to the speaker for clarification. Questions directed to the Division of Air Quality staff members will not be answered during this hearing, but if you have questions for DAQ staff, we can provide you with our contact information so that you may contact us during normal office hours. We ask that when recognized speakers are presenting their comments, that the audience refrain from making any noise, including applauding or talking over speakers or making any other noise that could impact the integrity of the audio recording of tonight's hearing. This ensures that I can hear all public comments clearly and that all public comments can be captured as part of the official record, and that all speakers are treated with respect when it's their turn to speak. After receiving comments this evening, the public hearing will be closed, but however, the period for submitting comments again will not close until Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 5 o'clock p.m. Again, all forms of comments will be received and will all have equal consideration in the final decision on whether to issue the permit. So I'm now going to call on Russell to discuss the application and the draft air quality permit. Got it.
Good evening. My name is Russell Braswell. I am an engineer with the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, and I am the permit engineer for this application. Duke Energy Progress LLC, or simply Duke Energy, operates the Roxboro Steam Electric Plant in Person County. This facility currently generates electricity with 4 coal-fired boiler units. As part of its carbon plan, Duke Energy is seeking to retire these boiler units and replace them with 4 new natural gas-fired combined cycle combustion turbines. These turbines will be capable of firing fuel oil as a backup fuel. In addition, Duke Energy plans to construct new supporting equipment for the turbines, such as emergency generators, natural gas-fired heaters, and an auxiliary natural gas-fired boiler. Duke Energy plans to construct the new turbines and retire the existing coal-fired boiler units in stages. First, 2 turbines and the supporting equipment will be constructed. Next, 2 of the coal-fired boiler units will be retired. Then, the final 2 turbines will be constructed. Finally, the remaining 2 coal-fired boiler units will be retired. The existing facility has an electric generating capacity of approximately 2,400 megawatts. Replacing the existing boilers with new turbines will increase the facility's capacity to approximately 2,700 megawatts. The new turbines will be subject to federal regulations, including the National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, abbreviated as NESHAP, Subpart 4Y, and New Source Performance Standards, abbreviated as NSPS, Subparts 4K and 4TA. The natural gas-fired heaters will be subject to NESHAP Subpart 5D and NSPS Subpart DC. The new auxiliary boiler will be subject to NESHAP Subpart 5D and NSPS Subpart BB. The new emergency generators will be subject to NESHAP Subpart 4Z and NSPS Subpart 4I. In addition, Duke Energy will be required to comply with state regulations as codified in the North Carolina Administrative Code. Emissions from each of the new turbines will be controlled by an oxidation catalyst and selective catalytic reduction system. When the turbines combust fuel oil, the turbines will also use water injection systems. Duke Energy will operate continuous emission monitoring systems for nitrogen oxides and carbon monoxide from each of the turbines. Duke Energy will conduct emissions testing for other pollutants from the turbines. The Roxboro Steam Electric Plant is a major stationary source under the Prevention of Significant Deterioration Program, abbreviated as PSD. Duke Energy has proposed emission limits such that this project does not constitute a major modification under PSD. Duke Energy evaluated potential emissions of toxic air pollutants from this facility. As a conservative approach, Duke Energy modeled emissions from the combination of all turbines and coal-fired boilers. This modeling demonstrated that each pollutant was less than their respective acceptable ambient limit. This modeling was approved by the division's Air Quality Analysis Branch on August 9, 2024. The draft permit includes conditions that ensure ambient levels of all pollutants beyond the facility's fence line comply with federal and state emission standards, including applicable health-based standards. The facility will be subject to record-keeping and reporting requirements and regular inspections.
So at this time, we're going to hear from those who've registered to provide oral comments. When your name is called, please proceed to the microphone, and to ensure that our records are complete, please clearly state your name and who you're representing, and your comments will be recorded, so please speak clearly into the microphone. I will do my best to pronounce your names correctly, and I apologize in advance for any errors. Please feel free to correct me if I get it wrong. That's one of the things I hate to do, is mess up people's names. So by all means, correct me if I get it wrong. We're now going to begin taking your comments. So the first commenter will be Philip Allen, and following Philip Allen will be Julie Bloom-Nye. Is everyone able to hear me without a microphone to call names? I'm seeing a lot of nods, yes. Thank you.
So am I going to be speaking to you or to the audience or both? How do you want me to do
I would
that?
rather you be talking to me so I can hear you directly and hear what you're saying. And I have two people down here taking notes based on what you're saying.
Okay, right. Okay. My name is Phil Allen, and I'm here tonight in support of Duke Energy, both as a private citizen and as chairman of the Person County Economic Development Commission. Person County is my home, and in many ways, for the last 60-plus years, it's been the home to Duke Energy. I've lived in Person County for over 70 years, and during this period, there has been no finer corporate citizen in Person County than Duke Energy. Let me say that again. There's been no finer corporate citizen in Person County than Duke Energy. They have built our beautiful lakes. They have provided thousands and thousands of jobs. They provide grants, gifts, and support to virtually every worthy cause over this period of time. Their employees volunteer and serve in leadership positions in our churches, in our schools, in our community college. They partner with our small businesses, and they also partner with our Chamber of Commerce. Duke is without question our greatest economic partner. They are much more than just a utility company. The Duke folks are our neighbors, they're our family, and they are a fabric of our community. They even raise money at their plants for worthy causes that they come up with. In addition to these contributions, they are our largest taxpayer. Person County is grateful for Duke for many reasons that extend much further than just the power, and so is North Carolina. But at the end of the day, they do one major thing. They provide reliable, dependable, predictable, and affordable electricity. The Duke plants have literally and figuratively kept the lights on in North Carolina for over 60 years. At peak period, they have generated up to 15% of the power come from our plants in Person County. So we ask that you continue to keep the lights on in Person County. In order for North Carolina to continue to be not only the best state in the country to do business, as well as the best place to live, Person County must continue to be an energy hub with Duke Energy for this state as we continue to grow. So let us meet this challenge for replacement generation for generations to come. Let's keep the lights on in Person County, and let's keep the lights on in North Carolina. Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Julie Bloom-Nye, followed by Stephanie Gantz.
Good evening. Are we okay?
Get up a little bit more in the microphone for me if you don't mind.
Good evening.
Thank you. You're good.
My name is Julie Nye. I'm speaking as a community resident, and I'm speaking in opposition to the permit. I've lived in Person County for the last 20 years. My neighborhood is surrounded by farmland and forests. My house is on the woods on a creek. It's an idyllic setting, or at least it was before the Mariah Energy Center started construction a mile away from me. And now I'm concerned about other projects in Person County that will further pollute the environment and threaten our health for years to come. I ask you to deny the Roxboro Steam Electric air quality permit. I was happy to learn that Duke Energy had plans to retire the heavily polluting coal-fired power plant on Hyco Lake, but now Duke seeks to build a methane gas plant at the same location. I do applaud any transition away from coal, but natural gas plants are also significant air polluters. Even worse, Duke plans to operate both plants simultaneously for an unspecified period of time, perhaps as long as 5 years. They don't have an adequate plan to monitor some of the most harmful pollutants that carry a higher risk of several cancers and respiratory problems. And if they don't monitor, they can't possibly take action to control those pollutants. I was shocked to learn that regular air quality monitoring is not an ongoing requirement for these kinds of facilities, despite significant levels of dangerous air pollutants that they are projected to emit. People just assume that air pollution monitoring is in place to ensure compliance with standards. The proposed plant poses a serious community health risk, to say nothing of an ongoing environmental justice issue. Duke Energy's own environmental justice analysis shows the plant may increase the community's already high risk of cancer from harmful pollutants. The area near the proposed gas plant already has significantly higher rates of infant and child mortality than the national average. The life expectancy of someone born near the proposed plant is 6 years shorter than somebody born just a few miles south in Durham County. Person County's cancer incidence rate puts it 17th out of North Carolina's 100 counties. We also have higher rates of stroke, chronic heart disease, and breathing disorders than most of the USA. Duke's application doesn't have an effective plan to monitor sulfur dioxide, sulfuric acid, and arsenic. Failure to monitor and control those pollutants can lead to a higher risk of skin, lung, bladder cancer, and respiratory diseases like asthma and COPD. Person County has already suffered more than its fair share of Duke Energy's air pollution. I ask you to deny the permit.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephanie Gantz, and following Ms. Gantz is Judy Modi.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Gans, and I live in North Durham. A lot of people aren't here tonight, and it's easy to see why. A lot of people don't know about this hearing. The air permit hearing process isn't designed to meaningfully engage the community. It's far from a democratic process. In talking with folks in Person County, many are sick of Duke Energy's pollution and lack of accountability. There are people who aren't here because of their health. People on oxygen living in the shadow of the current coal plant, whose water has already been poisoned by Duke Energy. People who are tired of their loved ones, their neighbors getting cancer, but despairing of anyone at a state agency doing anything to stop it. And there are people who aren't here because they've died, and the air and water pollution they experienced over the course of their lives is a major reason for that. There's no enforceable retirement date in this draft air permit for the coal plant, the source of the air pollution that I mentioned. It's unclear how long Duke would run the gas plants at the same time as the coal plant, generating a massive amount of pollution in a county where the rate of ED visits for asthma and the incidence of cancer are both higher than the state average. Some recent developments in Duke Energy's earnings calls shed some light on the benefits of Duke resisting an enforceable retirement date for the coal plant in this air permit. Duke Energy recently signed agreements to connect 2 gigawatts of new data centers. Coincidentally, or maybe not, Microsoft just purchased a huge industrial megapark in Person County. Circumstantial evidence points to it being for data centers. Microsoft is hungry for energy to power artificial intelligence, which, by the way, data centers don't generate jobs, but the AI systems they power could take them away. On the call, Duke CFO Brian Savoy said that signing these agreements happens when a customer has a site identified and land secured. Duke CFO also shared on the earnings call that Duke was hoping to burn more coal as a result of the Trump administration's proposed energy policies. Microsoft hasn't said what their plans are for the mega site, but given that, maybe they can dream bigger. Without an enforceable retirement date for the coal plant, local residents could be left to breathe the combined pollution of a massive coal plant, gas power plants, trucks going back and forth from both, an LNG facility, and possibly diesel backup generators to keep a Microsoft data center running when demand is high. Duke Energy has already flouted state law by getting the deadline for reducing their carbon output pushed back. This isn't how it has to be. There are real clean energy sources we can use. Apple's data center in Catawba County is run on solar energy. Do not retire one environmental injustice just to replace it with another. Do not issue this air permit. The limits of Microsoft and Duke Energy's greed cannot be the only backstop on making sure we have clean air to breathe and reducing carbon so our children have a future climate that they can live in.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Julie Modi, and following her speaking will be Vonda Frouts.
He's gonna help. Good evening. My name is Juhi Modi, and I urge the DAQ to deny Duke Energy's request for an air permit for this facility for the following reasons. Number one, Duke Energy has failed to address Clean Air Act 111 compliance, which could lead to worse air pollution than what Duke has proposed and pose public health risks. Duke's application is incomplete without this information on how it will comply. Under the Clean Air Act 111 rules, Duke would have to run the gas plants less than 40% of the time, which would require more startups and shutdowns. Not burning the gas efficiently would create higher levels of pollution, including carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxides, and certain hazardous air pollutants. Also, the emissions control technology that they would be using would be ineffective under these sorts of conditions, potentially leading to higher emissions than estimated. The first ask is that DAQ should reject the permit or delay making a decision on the permit until compliance information is given and Duke demonstrates exactly how it would comply with state and federal regulations. The second ask is that DAQ add an enforceable carbon dioxide emission limit to ensure compliance with the 111 rule beginning in 2032. The number 2 reason why you should deny this air permit is because Duke is underrepresenting the community impact by ignoring existing environmental health concerns and downplaying the environmental justice impacts of its plan. The community surrounding the proposed site has endured nearly 60 years of air pollution from the coal plant, not to mention the groundwater contamination from coal ash. As such, it's imperative to truly consider cumulative impacts in the area in this assessment of the permit. The surrounding area also deals with extremely concerning high rates of negative health effects. Let's take a look at the Climate Vulnerability Index, or CVI, which was created by researchers at the Environmental Defense Fund and Texas A&M University. Data from that shows that the area near the proposed site of the gas plants is in the 97th percentile nationwide for infant mortality, 95th for child mortality, and 90th for babies born with a low birth weight. The area also has high rates of stroke, cancer, chronic heart disease, and COPD. Respectively, the area is in the 76th, 73rd, 74th, and 71st percentiles nationally for each of those. Duke's own analysis shows that the gas plants may increase the area's already high risks of cancer due to certain harmful air pollutants. On top of that, the gas plants would be about 3/4 of a mile from Woodland Elementary School, exposing children as young as 5 years old to harmful air pollution. I urge the DAQ to truly consider the cumulative impacts in this area and help protect the community by denying the air permit.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Vonda Frautz, and followed by Chris Fair.
My name is Vonda France. I've lived in Person County for about 30 years, and I want to support the speakers who have spoken previously in their requests for improvements or denying of the permit if they aren't, if those improvements are not made. But I really want to speak about the bigger picture here. I think calling methane an improvement over coal is completely wrong-headed. The emissions are the same, both function by burning fossil fuels. We'll be spending billions of dollars on infrastructure for fossil fuels that will be, the facilities will be obsolete before they're finished. And our utility rates will increase, and we'll be stuck with these facilities for 30 years having to use them because we have them and we spent all that money. So what we should be doing is putting solar on all the rooftops in Person County. We have acres of rooftops, warehouses, retail, parking lots that could be covered. We have plenty of areas that we could turn into solar farms, and Duke could be an actual leader in this field to produce energy in a safer and cleaner manner. This would be worth spending time and money on. It would be good for consumers, it would be good for business, and it would be good for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Fair, followed by Thomas Gooding.
Can I start with a point of order question? Is it 6 coal-fired plants or 4? Because your brief that you hand out at the door says you've got 6 coal-fired plants.
There are 4 units that consist of a total of 6 boilers.
So you're firing 6 boilers.
There are 6 boilers, but there, if you look at the current permit, there's boiler 1, boiler 2, boiler 3A and B, boiler 4A and B. Does that make sense?
Yes and no.
Oh.
It means they're hiding 2 boilers in the numbers.
Oh, okay.
I was a shipboard engineer. We numbered our boilers 1, 2, 3, and 4, so we knew how many we had. I just wanted to clear that up, because it clearly says 6 on your hearing. Couple of quick questions. My name is Chris Fair, community speaking against the permit as currently offered. First question I have is, what's the basis for the data? Every time I've come to one of these hearings, the basis is, trust us. We haven't bought it yet, but this is what it will emit. Trust us. I'm sorry, I don't trust us anymore. I'm an engineer too, and data requires empirical evidence, not once upon a time. And I keep hearing a lot of promises. I don't see a lot of numbers. I don't see repeatable data. I don't see, based on other equipment running of this exact type, these are the measurements. 2, I don't see any monitoring of methane gas. If you're going to tell me there's going to be no leaks, I'm sorry, the Easter Bunny hasn't come to my house yet, but leaks occur. Methane is 80 times more impactful as a greenhouse gas than CO2 is. It has a shorter life duration, but if you're leaking it constantly, it does. When we were listening to the Mariah issues on this, one of the things Duke said is we won't need any of that cryogenically stored liquefied gas because we'll have plenty. Oh, but we're going to need a 45-mile pipeline to have enough gas to burn here. And I'm sure that has no environmental, no cost, no schedule impacts whatsoever. It's just 45 miles of pipe, sure, and permits. You know, that oh yeah is, you know, something to think about because the demand is not going to go down. You've already heard that Microsoft's coming to town and they don't come small. I grew up in Seattle, 6 miles from the Microsoft campus. I know what that means when they come to town. They have an impact. Data centers have a huge impact, okay? And that they're a great economic neighbor, no. I'm a pastor of a church. Our electric bill from Duke Progressive went up about 60% in the past 2 years. But part of their testimony to get that to the state was, but we're going to offer nonprofits and churches a lower rate. Try and find that. I had to go to the state board of utilities to find an engineer who could tell me what that lower rate was, because you can't find it on the Duke site. You have to corner a supervisor to tell you how to get to that rate. So don't tell me how wonderful a neighbor they are. They're a wonderful neighbor all the way to their bank. There's a lot of issues, a lot of answered questions, and a lot of impacts. The others have talked to the health. I'm just talking to the facts. And I don't see a lot of facts, I see a lot of promises. And they are not the same thing, not when you're talking about that. They don't even give you a timeline. You're telling me that a huge corporation like Duke does not have a timeline for their shutting down of these things and moving on of the new ones? I'm sorry, there's not any credibility here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next speaker is Thomas Gooding, followed by Shelley Robbins.
There you go.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Gooding. I'm an associate attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide brief comments on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council, Sierra Club, and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, whose representative will speak later this evening. We urge DEQ to deny Duke Energy's requested air permit for the Roxboro plant, or require substantial modifications that meaningfully address our concerns and those that others have shared this evening. While we plan to submit more extensive written comments next week, tonight we would like to focus on 3 principal concerns. First, Duke's assumptions underlying key parts of its application are flawed. The use of an extended look-back period, for example, has allowed Duke to cherry-pick historical emissions data that are not truly representative of the normal operations, allowing the facility to evade stricter limits on harmful pollutants, including nitrogen oxides and sulfuric acid. This is nothing new for the company, whose last permit modification relied on projected emissions to avoid certain permitting requirements, but whose actual emissions were substantially greater than its estimates, by more than 400% for some pollutants. Clearly, Duke's flawed assumption should not be taken at face value. Second, Duke wants to be held to a lesser standard when it comes to air monitoring and pollution controls, because the proposed gas plant would replace existing coal units. But the draft permit doesn't actually require the coal units to be retired. In fact, the permit application shows that Duke intends to operate the coal plant simultaneously with the new gas plant, not for a few weeks or months, but for a number of years. This misleading comparison allows Duke to skirt important permitting requirements that otherwise would apply to new large gas plants. A gas plant which Duke's analysis shows will generate higher levels of volatile organic compounds and carbon monoxide and emit more than twice the total carbon pollution as that produced by the 2 coal units it is replacing. Third, the draft permit poses serious risks to the health and well-being of local communities and the environment. Duke's analysis shows that toxic air contaminants from the proposed gas plant may increase the surrounding community's already high risk of cancer. And as other speakers have noted this evening, the surrounding community includes Woodland Elementary School, where more than 200 children in kindergarten through 5th grade learn and play. A mere 3,800 feet from the site of a new gas plant that will emit harmful pollutants associated with higher risks of asthma, heart problems, cancer, neurological disorders, and premature death. Those are not things any child should have to worry about, especially not in the classroom or on the playground. In sum, Duke is seeking to replace one source of harmful air pollution with another, while proposing to do less to protect the health and safety of surrounding communities and the environment. We respectfully ask that DEQ deny Duke's air permit application, or at the very least, reconsider approval of the extended look-back period, establish an enforceable timeline for retirement of the old units, and include more robust conditions for air monitoring, as well as real consequences if Duke were to exceed its limits. Thank you, and look forward to some more comprehensive analysis in our written comments. Next one.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shelley Robbins, followed by Catherine Cathy.
Yep.
Do you need help?
It's a little bit.
A little tight.
Can you hear me?
So
Should I pull it down more?
it's better. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Shelley Robbins. I live in Durham and I'm with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Before joining SACE, I directed the Phase Out Peakers project for the nonprofit Clean Energy Group, and I was the lead author on the 2022 report, The Peaker Problem, an Overview of Power Plant Facts and Impacts in Boston, Philadelphia, and Detroit. I'm not a scientist, but I've studied the literature that documents the impacts of fossil combustion emissions, even those within legal limits, on the human body. The DAQ will make decisions about this permit for 2 massive power plants that will affect more than 200 school children per year for the rest of their lives. Directly across the street on Samora Road, the children at Woodland Elementary School, ages 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 children, will spend 9 months per year for 6 years of their lives, less than 4,000 feet from legal emissions of nitrogen oxides, or NOx, as well as volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and other pollutants. NOx is bad by itself, but it helps the formation of small particulates called PM2.5 that are smaller than the alveoli in the children's lungs, and that will wreak havoc throughout their bodies for 6 years, with impacts that could last their lifetimes. Research from Johns Hopkins University and others has shown that extended exposure to PM2.5 can impact the brain, the nervous system, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the renal system, the endocrine system, and the reproductive system. According to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and the UNC School of Medicine, emergency room visits for asthma in Person County are more than double the number per 10,000 people than Caswell County, neighboring, and it is more than triple the number than Granville County on the other side. Overall monthly emergency room visits are more than quadruple Caswell's, and population difference does not account for that. So why? Because Person County has shouldered the power generation burden for the Triangle for decades. Justifying these plants and their emissions because they pollute these children less is not even the correct comparison. They will pollute and harm them differently, not less. SACE will submit more extensive comments for the record, but tonight we need to consider, is it really appropriate to approve a permit application that has included data that has been cherry-picked by Duke to avoid a higher level of scrutiny in order to pollute Person County's children less, when polluting them none is an option that Duke hasn't even put in the work to figure out. Duke hasn't analyzed solar and battery storage here in Person County. It hasn't analyzed an aggressive energy efficiency and demand response program where the load originates in the Triangle area. Let us do our part. And finally, looking into the future, what will the impact of Microsoft Data Center be on how this plant and the second Salem plant will run, especially if the new presidential administration orders the EPA to throw out the new power plant emission rules? This decision has consequences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kathy, followed by Katie Moore.
Good evening. I'm Kathy, the County Manager for Person County. Duke Energy is a vital and valued member of our community. Their investments in critical infrastructure and the people of Person County are significant. Currently, the 2 energy plants in Person County make up nearly 20% of our local tax base. A substantial portion of the county budget is funded by Duke Energy's tax contributions. In addition, the Duke Energy Foundation and Duke Energy employees support many of our community organizations through their time and financial resources. We benefit greatly from their civic engagement and commitment to Person County. Closing the coal-fired plants without replacing them with the proposed new combined cycle facilities in Person County would adversely impact the services provided to our residents, businesses, and visitors. Duke Energy has developed a good plan to replace the coal-fired plants with new, cleaner energy solutions that will protect the vitality of our community and continue to provide much-needed financial support for county services. The county's leaders and workforce are ready to take on the challenge of transitioning to new energy generation and look forward to Duke Energy's continued presence here. Thank you for considering the significance of Duke Energy's contributions to Person County and the importance of siting new energy generation in our community.
Thank you. Our speaker will be Katie Moore, followed by Taylor Moss.
Hi, my name is Katie Moore. I'm a resident of Roxboro and an air quality and health researcher. Many people are not here tonight. Many people who live adjacent to the proposed, to the current coal plant. And largely people feel that their testimony is not going to make any difference. I worked closely with community members around the Mariah Energy Center, and it's hard to tell the residents here that that's wrong, because we submitted over 500 comments to y'all, and we're engaged in an effort to try to understand the permit for months, and there were no changes, no substantive changes made to that permit. So I think we all really understand that when you say that you might deny the air permit, that's not really true, because once we get to this point in the process, it's done. And this is a box that you have to check, and then you'll move on with your lives. But I can tell you, even though people aren't here tonight, that the sentiment of Person County is that we're really tired of being sold out to these giant corporations for peanuts. You can see evidence in that by the 3 county commissioners who were vocally supportive of large industrial projects being voted out. DEQ says that this permit will result in a reduction of air pollution, but that's actually not the case, as many people have pointed out, because there's no enforceable retirement date for the coal units. So in your permitting and in your public communications, it's not true, or it's not as true, it's not directly true. So for some number of years, people in this area who, as other people have pointed out, are already overburdened with coal ash, pollution to their water, air pollution from the existing coal-fired power plants, and with new pollution that's going to come in from a pipeline, a Microsoft data center, and God only knows what else. You're telling them that it's going to get better, but it's actually going to get worse. So I think that y'all are getting taken for a ride by this company, and the result of that is that Person County is going to be more polluted, and y'all are going to have done nothing to keep us safe. The governor has signed executive orders on environmental justice, and y'all have some very nice documents on your website saying that that's important to you. But I haven't seen anything that demonstrates that in this case. This is a clear environmental justice issue, and y'all are not only not acting like that's the case, but you're not even asking basic questions of Duke. How does this relate to the 111 rule? When are the coal plants going to be phased out? Those are basic questions. This permit should not be issued without clear answers to those. This permit should also not be issued without y'all's ability to understand what pollution is going to look like in the county. We're fairly close to the new NAAQS PM standard, and there's very little monitoring in this county at all. Has anybody at the state agency looked at what that might look like when all of these new projects come online? I suspect you haven't. So I would urge you to look at that and to not just operate by the rules and to not just listen to what Duke is telling you, because we're the ones who are going to have to pay with our help. Thank you.
Thank you. Our speaker is Taylor Moss, followed by Dylan Kessler.
Hi, good evening. My name is Taylor Moss, and I'm a North Carolina native and current Duke University student studying the intersectionality between environmental sciences and human health, and I appreciate the opportunities to speak and express my beliefs today. Today, I'm asking that the DAQ denies this air permit and enforces restrictions to protect the well-being of Roxboro residents. While this plant poses significant environmental, economic, and legal burdens, it also poses a significant harm to human health for the surrounding communities. This plant utilizes methane gas, which is 80 times more harmful than carbon in itself. With drilling, extraction, and the transportation, this leakage is extremely harmful and negates Duke Energy's claims of a cleaner energy transition. Just 0.2% of methane leakage equals the level of emissions from the coal industry. In fact, Duke Energy's own analysis stated that this plant will generate high levels of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. These VOCs can lead to liver, kidney, and nervous system damage, while even low to moderate levels of carbon monoxide can cause heart, chest pain, impaired vision, and reduced brain function. Roxboro already faces severe health disparities, many of which were intensified by Duke Energy's coal plant. This community is in the 97th percentile for infant mortality nationwide. Adults in the area also suffer from high rates of chronic diseases and are in the 70th percentile for stroke, cancer, heart disease, and COPD. With the added risk from this new gas plant, these health challenges will only worsen. Additionally, this plant sits in close proximity to Woodland Elementary School, and as a young person myself, I could not have imagined spending my childhood in an environment that is actively degrading my own physical health. The people of this community have contributed to its growth and prosperity for generations, and they deserve to live in a place where their well-being is safeguarded and where their environment reflects the care and respect that they have put into it. Not only is it a burden, but a disservice for these people to be concerned with the livelihoods for a plant that will only operate for 30 to 40 years estimated. To prioritize a proposed plant over this community and the environmental functionality is unjust. Duke Energy is aware of these issues, but has failed to state their consideration for threats to human health and lacks a backup plan. For the sake of Roxboro and all North Carolinians alike, it is crucial that we uphold these corporations such as Duke Energy accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Our speaker is Dylan Kessler, followed by Kemi Diver.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Kessler, second year Duke student studying law and political science. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and present my opinions. I've come here to urge the DAQ to deny the air permit application and modify it to ensure strict compliance with state and federal law. Being from Houston, Texas, I've seen the effects of climate change firsthand. Weekly air quality alerts due to local oil and gas plant pollution, 100-year floods that happened every 3 years, and record high temperatures that make it impractical to go outside for days at a time. I acknowledge that Duke Energy's switch from coal to a natural gas combined cycle plant is debatably a cleaner option and will reduce carbon dioxide emissions, which, by the way, have a significantly lower global warming potential than methane. However, this is like claiming that Diet Coke is healthy. It still includes artificial ingredients and chemicals that may not be as bad as regular Coke, but regardless leads to negative health effects. Duke Energy's own analysis indicates that its gas plants will generate higher levels of dangerous volatile organic compounds and carbon monoxide than the existing coal plant. The new plant will still contribute significantly to hazardous heat levels and air pollution, threatening the health of Roxboro residents already at high risk for cancer. I also acknowledge how the Carolinas are expected a large, sharp increase in demand for electricity. Duke Energy claims that because of this, the new natural gas centers are necessary to fill in the gaps that cannot be filled by renewable energy sources. How is selling the energy to other companies for export and profit a form of filling in the gap? How is operating the centers for 30 to 40 years a way of filling in the gap? The North Carolina Utilities Commission's 2022 carbon plan, informed by House Bill 951, requires a 70% reduction in emissions from 2005 to 2030 and complete carbon neutrality by 2050. Duke Energy's supplemental filing describes an intention to disregard the carbon plan and HB 951, meeting the 70% reduction in 2035, 5 years after the 2030 hard deadline. I urge the DAQ to not improve the permit till Duke Energy provides a specific outline on how it will comply with the EPA Clean Air Act 111 and North Carolina's 2022 carbon plan. The permit must not be improved until a more robust plan for how Duke Energy will achieve carbon emission reduction and eventual carbon neutrality is established. I also implore DAQ to reject the permit until a specific timeline is enacted for how long the coal plants will run at the same time. It is high time that major corporations are held accountable and forced to comply with the law and environmental regulations for the sake of Carolinians and all those who continue to inhabit this planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Our speaker is Kimmy Diver, followed by Fisher Mallon.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time for today's hearing. My name is Kim Diver, and I'm a student studying environmental science and health policy at Duke University. I ask that the North Carolina DAQ denies or modifies the Roxboro air permit because its passing would ensure the environmental degradation and abuse of Person County's land, water, and community. Duke Energy has been present in this community 3 times as long as I have been alive. I'm concerned that since the 1960s, this area has been subject to hundreds of thousands of tons of toxic emissions, as well as coal ash spills that have permanently polluted Hyco Lake. The local and predominantly Black community surrounding these plants have been suffering for decades at the expense of what? Duke Energy places profit above a commitment to public health, which is a scary thought considering their monopoly and close relation to the North Carolina legislature. If you take a look at the EPA's environmental justice screening tool, which is online for everyone to access, you can search for indicators including low-income households, people of color, toxic releases to air, wastewater discharge, and health disparities like low life expectancy, heart disease, asthma, and cancer. If you zoom in on the map of Samora and Roxboro, you'll find that they are painted orange and red, indicating the 80th to 100th percentile for these indicators. Data also shows that Person County's emergency room visits for asthma and cancer rates are higher than the state average. Duke's current plan for the next decade includes running both the existing coal plant and eventually the new methane plants, as has been mentioned, which doubles this pollution and puts neighbors at even higher health risk. You said earlier that the pollutants are under ambient legal levels, but how can the exposure to the combination of all of these pollutions over the course of a lifetime be safe? The new plants will sit a quarter mile from Woodland Elementary School. If this doesn't set off alarms for you, I ask if you would send your own children to a school that is exposed to thousands of tons of air pollution annually, putting their health in jeopardy in order for them to get an education. If you would not, then I urge you to consider the implications of passing this air permit and legally authorizing Duke to create such emissions. The financial burden of these plants are also widespread and will hit low-income consumers the hardest. Duke will pass the costs associated with the construction and operation of the new plants to their consumers by spiking electricity bills, adding on to the deplorable list of injustices that Duke is accumulating. Duke's lack of regard for federal policies portrays their disinterest in catalyzing a cultural change and shift for clean energy, despite their means to do so. The vast continuation of the T15 pipeline and construction of combined cycle gas plants is not even the bare minimum in putting forth long-lasting investments in clean energy. As an environmentalist and student of color, Duke's effort to continue to harm this community with overwhelming and long-term impacts is terrifying as I try to imagine a sustainable and equitable future for Black Americans. If this permit is passed, the Environmental Justice Report release will be polluted with injustices, something that African Americans know, unfortunately well, but do not deserve. Replacing coal with methane is neither a bandage nor a remedy. We cannot replace fossil fuels with fossil fuels, or one injustice for another, and hope for a green and equitable future.
Thank you. Our speaker is Fisher Mallon, followed by Amir Maidari.
Are you able to hear me all right, like this?
You're good.
Okay. Hi, I'm Fisher. I'm a student studying economics and environmental science, and I'm asking the Division of Air Quality to deny Duke Energy's air permit for the 2 proposed methane gas plants at Hyco Lake in Person County. I firmly believe that granting this air permit is the wrong choice for Person County and North Carolina broadly.
First, the economics don't make sense. By Duke Energy's own estimates, the natural gas build-out that was described on a sheet that was handed out at the door will result in energy rate increases of 39% for Duke Energy Progress customers and 73% for Duke Energy Carolina customers, by their own estimates. We know there are cheaper and more sustainable energy alternatives available to Person County and North Carolina. We don't have to look outside of North Carolina to see evidence of counties successfully deploying distributed solar to provide residents with safer, cheaper, accessible, carbon-free energy. But I'm also here for a more personal reason. I'm scared what the construction of 2 new natural gas plants will mean for our health and our climate. Duke Energy acknowledges that these plants will release more dangerous volatile organic compounds and carbon monoxide than the existing coal plant. For the sake of our health, we should not stand for that. Building new natural gas plants, which have lifetimes of about 4 decades, would lock in North Carolina onto a dangerous pathway of releasing climate warming emissions. Duke Energy's current plan would set us on a path to fail to comply with North Carolina's carbon plan. I'm scared because I know what it means for my future, for our future, when North Carolina and the rest of the world fail to comply with emission reduction targets. It means the world we build, a world where natural places disappear. It means we build a world that faces more severe, more severe natural disasters, a world where food and jobs are more scarce, a world that is not as fortunate as the one we inherited, a world that we could have and can prevent. For the sake of North Carolinians and for the world that we leave behind, we should not stand for that. I urge the Division of Air Quality to not approve the air permit for the 2 proposed Tyco Lake gas plants, to demand a specific plan for the retirement of the current coal plants, and to seriously consider the role distributed solar ought to play in providing affordable, reliable, clean energy in Person County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our speaker is Amir Maidri, and our next speaker is Gordon Powell.
Good evening, my name is Amir Maidri, and I've been proud to call North Carolina home for over 18 years. I'm currently studying economics and public policy at Duke University, where I'm motivated by a lifelong passion for protecting the places and the people I love. On the weekends, I volunteer at a local senior home, and I see firsthand the challenges many of our elderly residents face. Those who built this community and who worked hard and now just want to live their days with dignity and security. I'm here to ask the DAQ to deny Duke Energy's air permit application for the proposed methane gas plant in Pearson County because approving it would be a step backwards for North Carolina for those who depend on us to protect their health and livelihoods. This issue is very personal to me. Many of my friends and family members suffer from asthma and are immunocompromised or elderly. The air quality already impacts their health, and Duke's proposal would make things worse. Their own data shows this plant would release higher levels of pollutants like volatile organic compounds and carbon monoxide, which harm the lungs, heart, and plenty of other organs. For my loved one and many vulnerable residents across North Carolina, this project represents more than an energy shift. It's a threat to their health and quality of life. Beyond the health risks, Duke's proposal would bring significant financial burdens. With potential rate hikes of up to 73% for some customers, the cost will fall hardest on those who can least afford it, like the seniors I work with who are already balancing medical and essential expenses. This project forces people in impossible choices between heating their homes, filling prescriptions, or buying groceries. We shouldn't ask North Carolinians to bear this cost, especially when there are cleaner, more affordable alternatives. Duke's plan also shows a lack of accountability. By cherry-picking data to avoid strict emission standards, they avoid responsibility for the true impact of this plan. This gas facility would run alongside existing coal units, further worsening air quality in Pearson County, a place already burdened by high rates of cancer, respiratory illnesses, and lower life expectancies. As someone who's grown up here and who loves this state and its people, I believe we can do better. I want a future where our state thrives economically, where utility costs are fair, and where clean air and health are prioritized. I urge the DAQ to deny this permit and protect our residents, our economy, and our future. North Carolina deserves clean air, affordable energy, and a commitment to progress, not pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. Our speaker is Gordon Powell, followed by Beth Townsend.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Gordon Powell. I am chairman of the Person County Board of Commissioners, and I'm here speaking on behalf of them. And I am urging you to approve Duke's plan for the building of and construction of the 2 plants here in Person County. Since 1966, our county's twin coal-fired plants help power the prosperity of North Carolinians, delivering reliable and affordable energy to residential and commercial customers across the state. As North Carolina has grown and needed more energy, Person County's power plants provided it. Now our state needs even more clean and dependable power, and Person County stands ready to help once again. The power centers became cornerstones of our community, creating 2 recreational parks, or lakes rather, while providing approximately 20% of the local tax base funding our schools, public safety, parks, public health, and other essential services. North Carolina cannot operate without new energy plants in Person County, nor can we thrive without them. Continued energy generation here is vital for our local future and essential for our state. Our plants provide approximately 12 to 15% of the state's energy needs during peak periods, helping millions of North Carolinians keep the lights on, the heat on, and the air conditioning on. As Duke Energy and other power providers expand their use of solar, wind, hydro energy, they urgently need more natural gas plants to keep North Carolina thriving in the short term. Without Person County's help, it will be difficult to expand North Carolina's power supply while keeping energy reliable and affordable. Fortunately, we have everything we need to make the state's energy transition timely and affordable. We have the energy workforce, the job training, the real estate, the rights-of-way, and transmission infrastructure already built. Person County embraces its role as an energy powerhouse for the state of North Carolina, and with a local economy built to provide fellow North Carolinians energy well into the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our speaker is Beth Townsend, followed by Hope Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Beth Townsend, and I am a representative of Duke Energy here locally. I have lived over 20 years and am proud to be a member of this community. I would like to share that Duke Energy is continuing to look at an all-of-the-above approach when it comes to generation. That includes solar and onshore wind, among other areas of generation. We also have an environmental justice committee made up of local residents, including residents close to the HYCO and Mayo plant. HYCO plant is what we reference it here in Person County. It's Roxboro plant, officially, what Duke calls it. But what I really wanted to share was a post that I saw the other day from Reverend Tim Bowes, and he says, "What a joy to spend time with the Roxboro and Mayo Duke Energy Community Service team today. Both of these plant employees work tirelessly to provide electricity for thousands and thousands of homes. These local employees also tirelessly work to give to their local communities, and we are particularly blessed by the work here in Person County. There is likely very good work in our community that does not have their fingerprint on it. For 7 years, the employees have hosted a charity golf classic, and that has raised over $200,000 in that time for local charities. with the vast majority going to children. This year, the Partnership for Children in Person County and My Life Matters were beneficiaries of the generosity of these Duke Energy employees. He goes on to list a handful of the employees, and he says, "This Duke Energy group is gracious. As we enjoyed fellowship and lunch together with some of the team members yesterday, I wasn't at all surprised to hear the many ways that they have been involved in our community. As each group received this year's gift, we were invited to share a few words, and he used these quotes. 'Don't ever say, that's not my job, and you'll always have a job,' by Buck Bose. 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping,' Mr. Rogers. 'Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the fathers of light, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change,' from the Apostle James. These Duke Energy folks look at the needs in our community, and they don't say, 'that's not my job.' They are the helpers. Wherever there is good, and however it manifests, that is God's giving the gift of goodness." And he goes on to thank Duke Energy for their continued support. And I just wanted to make sure I shared that, because that to me is very important in this community as a resident and an employee of Duke Energy.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hope Taylor, and followed by Tracy Sexton.
Good evening. I'm Hope Taylor. I'm a biochemist, a public health researcher, and executive director of Clean Water for North Carolina, which is a science-based environmental justice nonprofit. We will be submitting more detailed and technical comments later about our grave concerns about this permit and the proposed facility, the well-being of the population, and the health and safety of the vicinity, as well as the significant impairment of and delay of meeting the legislated emissions reductions that were called for by the General Assembly in a way that is unacceptable for the future of North Carolina and our nation. This permit is for the expansion of air polluting and climate impacting facilities in the HICO region, as it allows the continued operation of coal units even as construction of Power Block 1 is completed, and that operation would continue for an unspecified time. While the permit fact sheet touts the emissions reductions after coal units are shut down, this is completely misleading because there is no enforceable end date for those coal-fired operations. And we know that emissions of criteria pollutants as well as volatile organics will increase as a result of a plant operating under this permit. Many states are actually recognizing now the potential for avoiding the high costs for consumers of building new gas plants and pipelines, and avoiding emissions through a combination of wind, solar, efficiency, and storage. This project and the pipeline to supply it are motivated not by emissions reductions at all, but by the perverse incentive of a guaranteed rate of return on investment for a very expensive, needlessly expensive project. Some states have even legislated to prevent exactly that kind of permitting. The high cost of this project, to be borne by ratepayers, does not even take into account the avoidable costs of healthcare and suffering of the population. Finally, this community, as many of you know, is predominantly African American, and for that reason, this is an environmental justice community. It has also been disproportionately impacted for over 60 years by the operation of these plants. We call for the DAQ to deny this permit to prevent the further colonization of Person County as an energy colony for industry and for at the cost of the population. Thank you.
Thank you. The speaker is Tracy Sexton, followed by Ray Jeffers.
My name is Tracy Clayton Sexton. I request that the Division of Air Quality deny Duke Energy's Duke Roxboro 24A air permit because it has the prerogative to do so. Between DAQ hearings and Utility Commission hearings, this is at least the fourth hearing I've attended, and to date, neither of you have denied a permit yet that I have spoken to request that you deny. I would like to know how many permits you do deny. You are not a rubber stamp. Your function is to protect the people of North Carolina from big corporations who have their bottom lines, not the citizens and the planet's best interests as their number one priority. As your video says, your mission is to protect the health and prosperity of all North Carolinians with innovation and transparency. Your DEQ is working to hold bad actors accountable, but also reward those who choose to be good neighbors. And I wonder, is Duke Energy on DEQ's nice or naughty list? I beg you to take a holistic approach to Person County. You cannot look at this project in isolation, ignoring the other pollutants that are already spewed on its neighbors and the health and life expectancy harm that has already been done. This is an environmental justice situation. Duke Energy presents its plan for methane gas power plants as a cleaner alternative to coal, but fails to take the cleanest energy path available. Please deny this permit and encourage Duke Energy to begin earnestly the inevitable path before us. Renewable energy, sun, wind, and storage. The deck is stacked against citizens because Duke Energy reaps in more money as it builds out this fossil fuel infrastructure, when this type of energy must be retired for climate goals to be met. Duke Energy passes the infrastructure build-out costs to customers, when this type of facility should be illegal by this point. And if politics wasn't about who has the most money to spend to get their way, and was actually about freedom and justice for all, then the fossil fuel industry would already be under mandatory phase-out, definitely not build-up. So I'm asking you to be bold, to stand up for the citizens and deny this permit. And if you can't do that, then I ask that you at least mandate a regulatory quality monitor at this plant and another one at the Mariah Energy Center, and that you make the results of these monitors available to citizens in real time. Our health and prosperity depend on your fiduciary actions.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ray Jeffers, lifelong resident here in Person County. Grew up about 9 miles from the HYCO plant, live currently about 2 miles from the HYCO plant, have children that attended and currently attend Woodland Elementary, and farm my family's Century Farm, about 105 years here in the family, that sits directly between both plants. Actually, HYCO River and the railroad runs through our farm, connecting the two plants. I'm speaking in favor of approving the air permit for Duke Energy as part of the state's ongoing commitment to implementing North Carolina House Bill 951. This bill is a crucial step forward in modernizing our energy infrastructure, advancing clean energy, and ensuring that North Carolina remains a leader in sustainability and innovation. First, it's important to acknowledge that the energy landscape is rapidly evolving with the pressing need to address climate change and reduce carbon emissions. North Carolina has taken significant strides toward diversifying its energy sources, promoting renewable energy, and moving toward a cleaner, more resilient grid. House Bill 951 is a cornerstone of that effort, setting ambitious yet achievable goals for reducing carbon emissions. One of the key aspects of House Bill 951 is its focus on creating a balanced, reliable energy system. Renewable energy sources like wind and solar are intermittent, and as such, we must maintain a reliable base load power supply to ensure stability and security. By approving this air permit, you will be providing a bridge fuel that complements renewables and provides the grid with the flexibility it needs. North Carolina has a long track record of balancing environmental protection with economic development, and this permit ensures that Duke Energy's operations continue to meet the environmental standards. Approving this air permit is a necessary and responsible action to support North Carolina meet the goals set forth in House Bill 951. And I also want to note that I'm a member of the North Carolina House of Representatives representing Person County and District 2.
That's all the names that I have listed at the moment to speak. If you did not speak tonight but still want to provide comments on the draft air quality permit for Duke Energy Progress LLC Roxboro Steam Electric Plant, I'd like to repeat several ways to provide those comments. Is there anyone else who has signed up to speak who did not or was not allowed to speak? All right. So I'd like to go over these other ways to provide comments. Once again, comments are going to be open until November 22nd, 2024 at 5 p.m. You may also call and leave a voicemail message to 919-707-8726. Please provide your first and last name and who you are representing, and then state your comments related to the Duke Energy Roxboro plant. You may also provide written comments via email to the DAQ.publiccomments@deq.nc.gov with DukeRoxboro.24A as the title to the email in the subject line. Can everyone still hear me, or do I need to turn this back on? I started talking without it. I apologize. All right. You can use postal mail to submit written comments to the addresses that are listed in the public notice itself. Mailed comments must be postmarked by Friday, November 22nd, 2024. And lastly, you may submit written comments tonight, again, to the box right here at the front. You may do so at any time tonight after this hearing is adjourned. Based on the information received during tonight's public hearing and comments received throughout this comment period, I will make a recommendation to the Director of the Division of Air Quality for his consideration in making a final decision on the draft air quality permit for Duke Energy Roxboro Steam Electric Plant. Thank you for your cooperation and your attendance tonight and your interest in this permit process. The public hearing is now adjourned.